I'm going to set up the environment that I need to make a website, a dynamic web project with servlets, a database and a web server and some HTML pages. So to begin with, we are going to need the J2EE version of Eclipse, Tomcat web server and MySQL database. So first of all, I'm going to search for Tomcat version 7. Go there straight away. I might as well go straight to the download page. There we go. And I'm going to make sure that I download the zipped version of that. So here we go, core zip. So I'm going to download that straight away. Save that file. And when that arrives, I'm going to copy it. Well, I might as well just wait for a second. Hang on, there we go. Going to jump into my downloads folder. Okay, have a look at that. I'm going to take that and drop it into my documents. And inside my documents, I'm going to quickly just double click on it and expand it into that folder, Tomcat 7.0, whatever the version is. Then I'm going to set that up inside Eclipse. But first of all, I need the J2EE version of Eclipse. Alright, that's what I want there. Java Eclipse IDE for Java EE developers. macOS 64-bit, there we go, okay. Alright. So if I jump straight to the page, I've searched for Eclipse IDE for Java EE developers. I've got the macOS version, 64-bit, as long as you've got a computer that's built in the last 3 years. If you want to check how many bits your computer is, by the way, just go to About This Mac and have a look at processor. And if it's something like an i7, it's bound to be 64-bit because that's pretty recent. But if you just want to check, you can paste the processor in there and it'll tell you how many bits it is when it comes up. Here we go. Blah blah, codename processor number. I'm just going to save myself time by searching for a bit. And there you go, instruction set 64-bit. So I can just confirm it's a 64-bit processor I have. So I'm downloading the 64-bit version of this. Alright, but I mean, it's already been detected by the Eclipse website, so I'm fine. So I'm going to download that. Now I already have this, but click on it, download it, and open it and install it. It will install over the top of your existing Eclipse if you've just got the normal one, and you won't lose any of your projects. They will all open perfectly in the new version. Okay. In case you're worried about that, you can open up your documents folder and you can look for your workspace, which is where Eclipse saves your projects. Let me just order this. Workspace. And if you really want to, these are all my projects. If you really want to, you can very quickly right click on this and make a duplicate, but it's not necessary because I do this all the time. Okay? Now, once that's installed, you're going to open up Eclipse and we're going to set up Tomcat, the new version you've just installed and expanded in your documents folder. We're going to install that as a server inside Eclipse so that whenever we start up a web project, Eclipse knows it's there. Okay, so Eclipse is open. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go into Preferences and I'll go into Server, Runtime Environments, and you'll see here I've already got a previous version. You will have nothing. So I'm going to click on Add. I'll add version 7.0 or 7 point whatever it is. I'll go to Next and I'll browse for the folder that I've just expanded inside the Documents folder. So that was the one there. So I'm just going to go in there, open up that folder and click on Open, and whatever I had previously will be replaced in there. Click on Finish. And now you'll see I've got two different versions of Tomcat installed there. One's slightly, well, I think, even though they say 7.0, they're a little bit different, I think. But it doesn't matter at all. Actually, I'm just going to remove that one because I've already got one. Don't need it. Okay, I'm going to OK on that, or you will OK on that. And now what you can do is create a dynamic web project based around that server. Let me just explain. New project, and oops, sorry, file, new, and I'll go into other. I'll type in dynamic and choose dynamic web project. Now, if by any chance you don't have dynamic web project in this list, it means you've downloaded the wrong version of Eclipse. So go back to the website and make sure you've got the JEE, Java Enterprise Edition version of Eclipse, okay? Right, I'm gonna click on next. Gonna give it a project name. Then I'm gonna call it my first web project. And everything else will just be the default. Okay, it's going to ask me if I want to open the Java EE perspective. Yes, please. Okay, fantastic. And you'll notice if you open up that project, it's got some extra stuff which you don't need to worry too much about now. But what you are going to do is you're going to right click on that, right click on that and say new servlet. So there we go. And we're going to give this servlet, let's call it hello. And, oh sorry, that's a package. We're going to call the actual class name of the servlet hello. And everything else, we're just going to leave everything the way it is for now and finish. And you'll see that this instantly creates a template for us so we can add some stuff in. The most important bits to note here are that there are two main methods. There are two methods. One is called doGet and one is called doPost. Now, inside both of these are executed when the browser refreshes. In this case, in a doGet, it's whenever you either press the refresh button in the browser or type the web address on the very top line of the browser, it'll go in here. The post is when you complete an HTML form, which you're not going to be doing for a few minutes at least, until you've got the get working. So also, what you've got to do in this method is you've got to respond back to the browser in HTML, because that's what the browser understands. So I'm just gonna say, first of all, because it's a good thing to do, I'm gonna say response dot, let it come up, response dot set content type, and I'm going to set it equal to text / HTML. That sends a message straight to the browser, so that a header message, so it knows it has to interpret the next thing that I send as HTML. Okay. All right. Next, oops, hang on, I've got an extra speech mark there. Next thing I'm going to do is, and one missing there. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to create a print writer, because that's a nice useful tool for writing back to the browser. I think it's a capital W. Print writer. Let's call it out equals response dot get print writer. Oh, get writer, I think it is. It's been a while since I did this. Get writer, that looks okay. So what have I done wrong here? Is that a small w? No. Alright, Eclipse cannot be resolved. Okay, you don't tell me to import it. Alright, so the get writer function returns a print writer. Oh, print writer. So what's wrong with that? Do I need to import print writer? Where's the autocorrect? There you go. Fine, didn't see that. Okay, so I've got something called a print writer from the response. Now look at the two parameters that go into this method. There's a request and there's a response. The request is information about the browser and the IP address of the person who's asking the server for the web page, and a couple of other things as well, like the operating system they might have, the user agent, etc. The response is what you use to write back, your response, in this case an HTML page to them. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got the tool print writer that I'm going to use to write back to them. So I can just say out dot print, and inside here I can start off by saying, if you know HTML, you start off the HTML page then you start off a head, and then you close the head. Oops. Yeah, closing the head tag, and then you start off a body tag, and then you close the body tag, and then you close the HTML tag. That's the very basics of an HTML page. Now inside the body, I'm going to open up an H1 tag for the heading. I'm going to say this is a servlet response in a doGet method. There we go, a bit long-winded. And I'm going to shut down that H1. I'll do a couple of blank lines in HTML, and I'll say everything seems to be working fine. There we go. Okay, so far so good. Just scroll to the end of that line. Okay, it's polite or nice at the end if you close the print writer, but don't worry too much about it, because if you forget to do this, the web server will do it for you. It's not going to leave an open socket to the browser. Okay, so this is a very simple servlet I've written. If I type in the web address of the server here, it's going to execute that method, doGet, and it's just going to write that HTML back to the browser. I can test it out in a really simple way. If I click on the run arrow here and go to run as, it'll say run on server. The first time, yes, I do want to save it. The first time that it runs, it's going to ask me to confirm that I want to use the Tomcat server with it. I'll click on always so I don't get asked this question all the time. And on the server at the minute, I actually have a couple of other things that I've been running, so I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to remove that because they're previous projects. But this is it here. It's called my first web project. Okay, so the server is going to start up now, and those are going to be the only two things that are deployed on it. The output from the server appears down here. Just give it a second to start up, and that's the response I'm getting back from the servlet. Now, just so you kind of know that this is working, you can take that web address and you can open up, for example, you can open up any browser and paste that in there, and you get exactly the same thing. So here I've got Chrome talking to the Tomcat server, which is running inside inside Eclipse. It's written in Java, by the way, as well, the Tomcat server. That's why it runs so well inside Eclipse. So it's running in there, and my servlet is running inside the Tomcat web server. And the browser, when I hit enter there, it's sending a GET request to the server with the name, with the URL at the very top here, the page that it wants. And the server is running my servlet, which you see here. It's going into the doGet method, and it's writing back this HTML back to the browser again, which you see here. Okay, so that's so far so good. This is a GET method, a very simple one. Now, just so you know that this is working properly and it can be accessed from other people on the same network as well, you might want to go into your config, into your network config here, and have a look at your IP address. My current IP address on here is, where are we? TCP IP. I'm currently 192.168.1.9, so I'm going to replace localhost with, whoops, I can do it in Chrome. 192.168.69 was it? I think. Just check that still works. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go to google.com. Alright, then I'm going to go back, paste in that IP address now, and check it works. Okay, so that wasn't the right IP address. Oh, is that working? No. Just check. 192.168.1.9, that's why. 1.9. There we go. Okay, so right now, if I opened up my phone and I typed in, if I'm connected to the same Wi-Fi network, and I type in that same address, I will get the response, same response on the screen of my phone, because it's connecting to my to my web server. I'm running a proper web server inside Eclipse. Just done it on my phone. You can't see it. Okay, so here we go. This is one last thing I'm going to say. Well, two last things. If you want to stop the server, you have to go down here and stop it there. So I'm going to stop the server. Also, when you're starting the server up, when you're running the program, it'll open up a little tab here with a web browser in it, which is quite handy, but feel free to open up a different web browser and try it out. Now, if you write an HTML form, which I'm not going to get into now, if you write an HTML form, it'll execute the doPost method, which is exactly the same, but you can do more inside here because you have a lot of variables coming up from the form. I'll also very, very briefly tell you how to get a parameter here. So for example, if I can look inside, I can say string username, or string, why not? Username equals request dot get parameter. I'm going to call this one user. Okay, now what that means is that it's going to look at the URL that has been used, been typed into the browser, and it's going to look for something which looks like this. It'll be a question mark first, then user equals followed by some text. And if the person adds an ampersand, and then age equals 16, ampersand DOB equals 7, whatever it is, then that's 3 different parameters separated by an ampersand. But we're just going to look at one at the minute. So I'm going to type in the URL at the end of it. I'm going to type that in the URL, and I'm going to get it to print out inside that string my name. So it's going to say everything seems to be working fine, followed by my name. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to say plus username plus open again. That's right, isn't it? Hang on. Okay. So it's looking for a parameter called user in the URL, and it's putting that into the variable username and then printing that out there. So I'm just going to run that again. Server. Yep. And everything seems to be working fine. However, at the very end of that URL, if I put a question mark, user equals Ken, I refresh it again. Oops, so hang on, didn't quite finish. See, it took a little while to deploy there, so I wasn't getting the up-to-date version. I'm going to try that again. I'm going to try it like I did at the very, very beginning. Just get rid of that. You can kind of see that happen. Did you see those messages appear at the very bottom after I'd loaded the page? Sometimes it does that. There you go. So it says everything seems to be working fine, null. Which if you look at my code, it's doing that because I didn't pass in the username that time at all. So it's just printing out what is in that string, what I got from the request, which is nothing. However, if I put in here question mark, user equals Ken, hit enter, it seems everything seems to be working fine, Ken. Okay, this is one way of getting a parameter from the app or from the browser into your servlet. The other way is using an HTML form, right? I'm going to stop there. The last thing I'm going to say is you're probably going to need a database as well. So if you've got a project which shares data on the web, which most of them do, let me just draw this for you really quickly. Yep, you're going to have some web pages here. Well, you're going to have a browser here. You're going to have a web server, which is running inside Eclipse at the minute here, and you're going to have a database server here for your data. Now, because we're only developing this kind of ourselves here, we're going to be using our laptop for all three, which is quite handy. But on this one here, this is going to be your, we'll call it the client, which is a browser. All right. We're going to call this one the web server, and it's running in Eclipse, and it has Java servlets. place that in there. And this one here is going to be the database server. And we're going to use my, yeah, why not, MySQL for that, because it's free and it's a compliant database, SQL compliant database. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Your client is going to ask the web server for an address. The web server is going to run a servlet. That servlet at some point in time is going to connect to the database and run an SQL statement, which stands for Structured Query Language, and it asks for data. That is going to go to whatever tables in your database, and you're going to build a small structure of tables linked together with your information inside them in whatever format you need it, and it's going to return back the data to your servlet in the form of a record set, which is a Java object. A Java object which is similar to a collection or an array, which you can iterate through and get the data out of. And then you're going to have, whoops, it's a bit off. You're going to have a JSP file here. Don't know why I decided to draw this instead of typing it. A JSP file. A JSP file is basically HTML with a few tags inside. Put that there. And your servlet is going to redirect to that. And that is going to take the information from your record set and put it inside your page, so it looks nice on your HTML page. And then that is going to be returned back to the browser, and that's what the user is going to see. Okay, that's a Java servlet, by the way. Now, what you've just done now in this little test is you've got a client, you've asked it to go to a web server, Tomcat, running an Eclipse. It's run a servlet, but that servlet hasn't connected to the database because we haven't set that up yet, and it hasn't passed it on to a JSP. All it's done is print out some HTML or make it itself and return it straight back to the browser. In real life, that gets a little bit complicated because if you had to write out or print out inside a Java program loads of pages of HTML, all of this stuff, it would get quite confusing. So what we do is we have it inside a JSP page, and we kind of develop it on a program in HTML editor, and then we forward or we redirect the request to here with the parameters that we need inside it from the database. It fills it in and returns it back to the client. Okay, that's a lot to take in. I hope you managed to get as far as I did by yourself, so that when we do this little catch-up session or learn a little bit about databases, you'll be at the right stage. Okay.